everyone, welcome back to Absolutely Marvel and DC. My name is Benny, that is Sal, and that is Hassan, and today's episode is brought to you by Into the AM. Use the code ABSOLUTELY at checkout to get some incredibly soft t-shirts in brand new designs on a regular basis. They've been our sponsor for a while, we really appreciate them, and if you want to keep this channel going, check out the recent designs they just came out with. All right, so today we're going to be doing Antwatch. So Hassan brought this one up. He was like, everyone, we should rewatch Antman 1 and 2. And Antman 1 and 2 are some of my favorite MCU movies. I actually really like those movies.
Classics.
I've watched them, and I watched them like 3 years ago. Right. So this weekend, I was getting set up to watch them. I went to Disney Plus, and there is an ad on the Marvel YouTube channel. There's an ad, and the ad says that if you want to get caught up and you want to know what's going on in Ant-Man, just watch our Marvel Legends shorts. So they did a 10-minute short for Ant-Man, a 10-minute short for Wasp, and a 10-minute short for Hank Pym. And so I was like, you know what would be funny? They're going to rewatch them. What if I just watched the shorts? And we'll see if that worked. If I remembered the movies based on these short version watches. Now, you guys didn't watch this. All they did was just condense the movie clips down. That's all it is. So it's like watching the movies in 10 minutes.
Wow, Benny. What a lazy thing to do and pretend. And look at this sales pitch. His sales pitch is like, oh, yeah, I did this kind of funny, innovative thing. Benny, I sat down yesterday. I had other things to do. I watched 5 hours of content for the channel. I watched Antman 1, Antman 2, Last of Us. That's 5 hours.
Why did you wait until yesterday to watch Last of Us?
I had things to do. There was so much. I am not only on this channel. I have other stuff to work on.
I'm on 4 other channels. I don't want to hear you're busy.
You own all of them, and you don't need them. I don't want to hear it, okay? I don't want to hear it. What I know is I sat down.
The argument is I own them all. That's the argument.
The argument is that one of them is the main thing that you make money off of. I have to do this or I can't pay bills. Okay,
that's true.
It's fine. We'll take a second. We'll take a beat. So I had to watch 5 hours of content, and Benny watched about
20
I guarantee he skimmed through some of the YouTube videos too, because he doesn't have the attention span to sit through a 10-minute YouTube video. I refuse to believe it.
It wasn't a YouTube video. They're
unless
on
Natalie
Disney
is sitting
Plus.
there with you watching it, I just don't believe it.
No, I was working out.
There it is. There it is. Mr. ADHD over here.
I was lifting weights. Now he's strong like Scott Lang. Oh, wrong superhero to aim for.
Yeah.
Are you kidding? He looks so yoked. And at least in the first Ant-Man movie, he has that scene where he gets beat up by Wasp, and he's like putting the pad on here, clean up his bruises, and she's like, does a little double take.
Yeah.
And he looks great. Paul Rudd got shredded.
But it doesn't matter, because if my rewatch didn't work, we still have you two. So, Hudson, since this was your idea, you take point. Let's go.
Okay,
we'll start with Ant-Man 1.
We'll start with Ant-Man 1. Immediately, it's crazy the memories that flooded back, because I've seen this maybe a couple times, but I remember when it came out, I didn't watch this one in theaters. I thought it was, a movie about Ant-Man? I don't care. I remember specifically being like, hey, Steven, some guy in my choir class, what was important? Was there like an MCU tie-in? Like, did they have a cameo or anything? He's like, yeah, there's a scene with Falcon. Look it up on YouTube. And that's all I'd watched for a very long time.
Wow.
And then eventually, I think it was like a couple months later, I ended up watching it, and I loved it. And I didn't remember any of that stuff until now. And this movie is such a breath of fresh air. Yes. The casting is great. Every single person on this cast is charismatic as could be, except for the villain. And I think that this movie and the next movie, that is the thing that falls the most flat in these films, which means Quantumanium has the potential, because it's using a larger-than-life villain to fix that. But this movie had maybe one of the worst villains I've ever seen, but everything else, the chemistry between Evangeline Lilly and Paul Rudd is so good. It's crazy how, like, I'm surprised they haven't done more movies together just because of how good they are on screen. Michael Douglas, oh my God, just hilarious. Every line delivery is spot on. I could never imagine anybody else in that role. Luis,
showstopper.
Michael
He's
Pena,
a show stealer. Yeah.
Here's the weird part. My versions didn't have any of the Luis stuff. And I remember him
Luis
being one of my
should
favorite
be
scenes.
the videos.
The movie, it literally could have just been Luis.
I know. That's what I found funny. Like you could have just thrown him at the end of each one of these, and it would have worked. Like,
Feige has said this multiple times, and he's a little scumbag in his little hat for never doing this. I love you, but do it. He said that there is a cut before Endgame released where he had Michael Pena come in and record dialogue that was literally the, hey, so this girl went, that whole thing. The entire MCU leading up to Endgame. He recorded that. And they filmed it. They're Marvel editors. There's people working around the clock. They definitely have the footage. They've never released it, which is infuriating because that's so funny.
It is infuriating.
But yeah, Luis is incredible. Such a good character. His supporting cast, I don't think gets enough credit. They're super funny. That guy recently Kurt in this movie, I don't know what his actor's name is, but he's done the Flash TV show, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
Where he plays the guy from the future, Abracadabra from the future, whatever his name is, the Flash villain from the future. And then he was in Suicide Squad with James Gunn recently.
Yes. He played Polka Dot Man.
Yeah,
he was great.
Polka Dot Man was great.
And he's great in this too. He's very funny. But yeah,
he's the Baba Yaga from the second one. Yeah.
You guys take over.
That was one of the big things about. I'll go between you guys with this, okay? Because this is actually going to be really interesting. So the cut versions cut out all the side characters. It was all about Scott Lang, Ant-Man, Wasp, and Hank. That's all it was really about. We didn't see any, and Darren Cross. He was in there too.
Yeah.
It also
a waste.
In its recap starts with the fight versus Falcon. So they imply that so we're gonna that's where it started. The movie started with the fight with Falcon. I'm like, that's not where it started.
It's like
what a weird spot for your recap.
Yeah.
Only to show Ant-Man fighting.
Yeah.
And then it just showed all the best jokes from Hank Pym and everything.
Right.
One of my favorite lines was still in there. I'm done stealing things. I'm done breaking in and stealing things. So what it is you want me to do? I want you to break in and steal some things.
Yeah. It's great.
Yeah. But it's interesting that they went that route because I figured it would be more about Cassie, Scott, and Wasp. If they're gonna do that, they're gonna do that because she's one of the main characters. I think it's hard to do that because you have 3 actresses of footage, or 2 actresses specifically, to shuffle through, and that's kind of awkward, especially because you're recasting it. So it's probably best to maybe do baby Cassie.
Up. She pops up, and they're because this is for the record, for those who may have misunderstood, this is Disney's version of the videos that Sal and I do. This is Disney telling you, watch this and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
This isn't like Benny found a random YouTube video. This is Disney's supposed answer to not have to watch Ant-Man, which is why I find it weird. Cassie barely shows up. She's just she gets brought up as okay, I'm doing this for my daughter,
Yeah.
And that's it. And they do the funny scene with Jimmy Woo and the daughter. They put that in there too. Because they made sure to get the Marvel quips in here.
Oh yeah. Gotta get those in there.
But was older Cassie in it? Was Emma Furman in it?
I think she was in the background. I remember younger Cassie getting more in their face.
They show her in the trailer
movie,
too.
Though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good. At least give middle Cassie, the one that is definitely the correct age to play this role, a little bit of love, please.
Yeah.
Since we recasted her and she found out on Twitter.
Yeah, that sucks.
But one thing I did like about this movie, not the recap, but the actual movie, is I really enjoyed this one because it's the most superhero, not superhero movie that MCU did at the time.
Yeah.
And that's what you and I have said multiple times, Sal. It's just a heist movie where he happens to have the ability to shrink.
Well,
which is great.
And that's a holdover from the Edgar Wright time. When Edgar Wright wanted to make that Ant-Man movie, before there was an MCU, the plan was I want to make a heist movie with a tiny guy. A heist movie, but he can shrink. That's the fun part.
Right.
And they kept that part, which I'm so glad they did because it's a fundamental aspect of this version of the character. And but it also feels very much I remember the compliment everyone gave it. Certainly I gave it when I first saw it in theaters was it feels like a comic book. It felt like a superhero comic book movie that you might have made in the early 2000s, late 90s. But because it's part of the bigger tapestry, it got a wider reach, wider audience, and became something. It was allowed to have its own identity as a result because the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe could support it. And as a result, because Ant-Man is both literally and figuratively diminutive and smaller as a character, they were, Marvel has been very quick to go let's use him. He's the linchpin of Endgame. He is, and I think that there's a really good reason why he's the character they've chosen to introduce Kang, because they're this is, and I remember Feige saying something about this leading up to the third movie where he's it's Scott Lang's time, to be a big deal.
Yeah.
And I'm I love that. He also survived. He's one of the few guys who are alive.
Watching through these movies, the whole second time is 7 minutes.
Yeah.
One thing I realize is Scott Lang's really the only character that, even though he grows physically bigger, he's the only one that never got larger than life.
Yeah.
Because they run through his time with Civil War, they run through his time in Endgame. Both of those are in this recap too, by the way. So I've seen more Ant-Man than you now, Hassan. Anyway. But throughout the entire thing, he's always stayed guy raising the daughter. Like, he didn't become the America's symbol of peace battling against the Nazis. He didn't become Iron Man, rich man making billions of dollars a day. He didn't become Spider-Man, known around the world as like this big new superhero and then not known around the world. But you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Like, he stayed grounded. And I think, and this is just off the top of my head, so I'm probably wrong if someone's going to yell at me, but I'm pretty sure he's the only big name title character that stayed grounded throughout the entire MCU. Never got to a bigger stage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like Quantumania is going to be his bigger stage finally. Like he's going to hit that next level of what the hell.
Yeah.
Because I remembered watch the second movie being more about the quantum realm, and it really wasn't. It was about getting to the quantum realm.
Yeah, a lot of a lot of Goggins in that movie for no reason. Like a
Yeah.
lot, remember when they were like, "Man, we cast Lawrence Fishburne as Goliath, and we're not going to use him like at all."
We got to get to that part because I want to talk.
We'll get there. Yeah, no, we'll definitely get there.
You
But
said
I'm just saying,
Spider-Man.
like,
I want to say before we're right there, while you mentioned
right.
Spider-Man, the very first mention of Spider-Man in the MCU comes via Luis's monologue at the end of the movie, where he goes, "It's Anna Canna, YouTuber, by the way, throwback, very famous, popular YouTuber, Ray William Johnson's ex-girlfriend, out of nowhere. She's in this, and she says, I got a guy who can crawl on walls. I got a guy who can swing."
Yeah.
Spider-Man's very first mention, because then the following movie was Civil War, where Spider-Man was introduced. So this is like the first time they actually brought him into the MCU.
Yeah.
Now we can continue. Just had to make sure I got that out.
But yeah, and we'll get back to the more of the Ant-Man and Wasp when we get there. But it was funny because I remembered it being very much about the quantum realm. But once Ghost pops up in these videos, I was like, oh shit, it's all about Ghost in it. Like, and they did the whole drive into town and he grew, and like that whole movie just came back to me at that point. Like,
Yeah.
but anyway, so Sal, we've already kind of touched on, but do you want to add any more to the actual Ant-Man 1 discussion?
I say this every time, but like Darren Cross, as Husson mentioned, sucks.
Terrible.
He does what he can. Like, the actor's like chewing the scenery, but both Goggins in 2 and whoever plays Darren Cross in 1, because it doesn't matter. He looks like Howie Mandel. It's not. Should have been Howie Mandel.
Could have been Howie Mandel.
Right? Would have been amazing. Would have been way better.
Nothing
if it was Howie
changes.
Mandel. But if you can replace your bad guy with Justin Hammer, do it.
Yeah. Imagine if we had Sam Rockwell and they somehow created a real relationship between Sam Rockwell and Hank Pym, somehow that narrative thread would have been. It doesn't feel believable that this was his protege. It doesn't feel believable. He doesn't even talk to him like it would have been. There's no love there. There's nothing there. And they wanted to hinge on this thing of like, he's scorned, but he loved Hank Pym, and this is thing, but he's deranged because the Pym particles make him crazy. We don't know who he is. So why would we know if Pym particles are making him crazy if he's just crazy? He's just a crazy guy. It doesn't resonate.
Yeah, and like his, the romance part of it, where he's like, oh, I like you, we're dating, but like there's no chemistry between him and her either.
Oh my God, I couldn't even tell they were dating. Rewatching it, I literally didn't realize that was a plot point until I was like just thinking about it later. Okay, that's the implication that there's
right. Well,
I know there was some
I got the
uncomfortable
implication
flirting.
of her line that she's got his trust now. She's good.
Right. Like, what? You're sleeping together. What are you talking about?
Oh, man. Yeah,
I hope you got his trust now.
that is the fault of that. That is the weakest point of this movie by far. Everything else is really, really solid, but both as like a visual thing, I think what is, I don't even know what the villain's name is. What is it called?
Yellow Jacket.
Yellow Jacket.
Yellow Jacket.
Well, Darren Cross, Yellow Jacket. Yeah.
Darren Cross Yellow Jacket looks awful. Yellow Jacket doesn't look that great. It has like
He's
one shot where it
overdesigned.
looks fine. It's very, very old school Marvel. Let's put bells and whistles and stripes and leather or whatever. Fine. It's very overdesigned, and the final fight sequence, the way it cuts off and then starts again, really, really clunky. You needed to, instead of having the backyard fight scene, which I like, it's cool.
I like it
You
too.
need to just get to Cassie's house.
Yes.
You needed to get to the Lang's house immediately and have that scene there, because it just pauses and then continues, and it doesn't really track well.
No, I agree. Yeah, but overall, like Ant-Man 1 is a fun watch. And it has nothing to do, like, there's a greater Marvel universe, but that's implied by, like, the Avengers compound and Falcon.
Yeah.
Great scene, by the way.
Yeah, no, the Falcon scene is, and I love the line at the end of it where he's just like, okay, whatever you do.
Cap can never know about
Cap
this.
can never know.
It's really important to me that Cap never finds out about
I love that. I mean, it's...
Did we ever find out who he was talking to? I remember there was rumors of like...
He has there's like staff there now. Like it could be just the guy on the phone. You know?
Well, no, I remember there was a video like who is Falcon talking to, and there was like rumors that maybe it was like somebody important on the other
it could
end.
be Black Widow.
Yeah.
The fact that back in the day we could make an entire video about that blows my mind because we need so much meat and potatoes to film something
We could have
these
earned
days.
off of that. Who is Falcon talking to?
Oh my god. Who is Falcon's hairdresser in this film? Who's his barber? Who gave him his fade?
Yeah.
And I remember the ending to this one also being kind of cool, where it was like the whole movie they were implying like, okay, Wasp can't do it. The father doesn't trust her. Scott Lang's expendable. That's why we're doing this. Only to end with like, and here's the Wasp suit. Maybe if we get a sequel. Because then when this came out, we still weren't guaranteed that every MCU movie was getting a sequel.
Right.
It was still kind of like, maybe they all won't.
Yeah.
This was post Age of Ultron, where like movies weren't necessarily a guaranteed success critically at all anymore. Because we had Winter Soldier, where it's like we can do no wrong, and then they had Age of Ultron, where like we could do wrong. But the Wasp
Pinocchio.
the Wasp suit that we saw at the end of this looks incredible. The reason that they never used that suit, that is the classic Wasp suit, is that was created by a CGI artist. And while the artist got it, I looked this up last night because I was really interested in it because I love that suit.
Yeah.
It's so impractical. They're like, there's no way to fit this on a human woman. It looks great as a CGI thing that exists floating on this wall, but put that on Evangeline and nothing will make sense. So then they created the actual Wasp suit that we ended up getting in the following film.
Well, the one thing that they did change over Ant-Man and the Wasp is, like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Sal, because you'll know more. The suit isn't important. It's literally just the helmet, isn't it?
It's just the particles. Like you drink them.
Yeah. Okay. I was gonna say like the suit is just like that's just his suit. The helmet lets him talk to ants, and then he just because Deadpool slips the particles into coffee.
Yeah.
To get bombs into Luke Cage.
Hawkeye used to drink them to be Goliath. Like Hawkeye used to literally drink them every morning to be big.
Right.
But the change in the movies is the suit is the thing.
Well, the suit is the delivery method by which you breathe in the particles. It's why there's like a weird respirator on all of them.
Right.
Because like you have to breathe in the particles through the suit. If I had $1 for every time they said suit in these movies, I would be a rich man.
Right.
Because
well, and they don't say this in Avengers Endgame, but the quantum suit it's a PIM suit. So it literally has the same helmet as Ant-Man's suit because it's exactly that. It goes over your head, and then it fills you with PIM particles, and then you shrink into between the quantum realm and you use Iron Man's whatever thing to traverse it. Which, I think this is the first time I've really watched the two of them since seeing Endgame, since seeing everything. It works really well.
It does.
They set it up really, really, really well because, no, Iron Man doesn't. I would say the only thing that I have issue with, how much of the PIM particle does it take to travel back in time? How much does the PIM particle does it take to shrink and grow?
Right.
Because Ant-Man in those movies shrinks and grows several times throughout fighting and doing things, but they only have so many PIM particles travel back in time. So it creates kind of a very significant plot hole in Avengers Endgame.
yeah.
Because, like, how connected is that? And maybe it's, like, only this much to shrink and grow, but this much to travel in time.
Yeah.
Right.
Is it a particle? Is it a liquid?
Right? They're never going to answer that question. They're literally like, what?
And that's for the best.
Well, one thing I've noticed the MCU likes to do, they pull the old Star Trek thing, where we use big words and we don't actually tell you how it works, but we just let you assume
Yeah.
how everything actually functions.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times does Tony Stark say random words that you're just like, what? Oh, laser.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the
And they
EPR
address
paradox.
it. They address it in the next movie. In Ant-Man and the Wasp, they have a wonderful piece
We
of
don't
dialogue.
go there yet. See, because you guys didn't watch the Marvel recap. We go to Civil War next.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, talk about it, please.
So Civil War is when he discovers he can grow, which is a plot point that does pop back up in Ant-Man and Wasp.
Well, he
Doesn't
does
discover
say
it, he
he
knows it.
did do it in
They
a
trained
lab.
it. Yeah,
it
they
was
trained to do it
between
in a lab.
No, but he
one-
was supposed to be able to do it. Remember, like he's like, I can't do it. I
No, he
can't
said,
get
I
big.
did it once and I passed out.
Yeah.
Yeah, he passed out. So he did it before. So, like, in between the movies, he trained to try and grow to figure that out.
Yeah.
And then they said, this is the biggest I've ever been, was
Yeah.
in the movie.
Right.
right.
Was in
Well,
Civil
so Civil War happens because it's actually very important. This is the era, which is where I think a lot of, and I actually bring this up less of a joke, because this is during the MCU when everything needed to be very intrinsically linked.
Yes.
Everything was very important, because I think that's one of the complaints of Phase 4. Nothing feels linked. Even though we're talking about the multiverse, there's no real major crossovers between the movies. But at this period, it was Ant-Man, and if you didn't watch Civil War, You go into Ant-Man and Wasp, he's under house arrest.
Right.
The cops are there when he leaves the building. Like
Yeah.
these are big implications to his character. Also, I think it's like him and 2 other people that got arrested out of that entire Civil War event.
Right?
It was
Yeah, it's-
Wanda, him, Clint, and one other
Sam.
person. Yeah, and Sam. All 4 of
Yeah.
them were arrested in
But
the airport.
yeah, and he was not invited. Well, he took a plea deal. Scott and Clint took plea deals. But
Because of their families. That was the
Yeah, 'cause
reason.
their
Yeah, they
families.
were both invited to go off and go rogue with Cap and everything else, but they decided to stay back,
like,
which
no,
I think is really significant.
yeah, but it also is a source of contention between Scott and Hope in the second movie because she's like, you didn't invite me. Like,
Right.
you'll never know if I could have helped you or not.
That was one of the big plot points because he stole the suit, and at first
Yes.
you're like he thinks that she's mad because he stole the suit, but it's
Right.
because he didn't invite her to go along.
Yeah.
Yeah, and their dialogue, and those are the scenes in the second movie that I think their chemistry really, really is hitting because it's so clear that there is this connection, and Scott royally messed up. He really, really messed up, and it is quick when you look at the timeline because the ending scene, I know a guy to the scene they show you at the end. The ending scene of this movie, the after credit scene, is a scene from Captain America: Civil War where Bucky's arm is on the thing or whatever, and then he's like, "What are we gonna do? I think I know a guy," and that's Ant-Man is the guy.
Yeah, but they, also one of the big points that carries over is that's also why Scott is not trusted by even Hank at the time because he stole the suit from Hank.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So because one of the big plot points in the second one is that they didn't tell Scott they're doing this quantum realm testing. Like he didn't know any of this stuff was going on.
Yeah, we've officially entered Ant-Man and the Wasp 2 talk, by the way.
Yes.
We're in Ant-Man and the Wasp talk.
But I wanted to bring up Civil War because it is in the video, and I found that to be funny that they bring up that and the Endgame appearance.
Yeah.
But Civil War is actually very important to his character. Like what happens is very important. So,
That's true.
Which they talk about it, and as a person who just watched this back to back for the very first time, usually I will watch Civil War in between. It flows really well. Like it's fine.
Nice.
It's the same thing of like every '80s movie where they do a sequel and it's like 20 years later, and they don't do a ton of groundwork, but then like throughout it they pepper in what you need to know, and you get everything that you have. I actually like the expectation subversion because the people who didn't watch it, they watch it and they see Ant-Man. Oh wait, he shrunk down with Cassie. Cassie shrunk too. They're in this cave together, and then it's quickly revealed to be like a giant thing that he built in his house.
Yeah.
Which is lovely. And the fact that when you watch the first movie, he's living in Luis's like basement. It's a terribly disgusting place to live. It's awful. He has a beautiful house in San Francisco now.
Yeah.
Like say what you want about everything else.
With
He's
a
under
drum
house
set.
arrest. He's a beautiful house and a drum set, and an electronic drum set, which is it's stupid how much that made me laugh. That stupid gimmick made me laugh multiple times.
This movie also has one of the like most reviled post-credit scenes of all time. Because they you got the snap, but you also got the ant playing the drums, and people were like, people were
is this
mad.
the one that kind of started kicking off the Goofy one?
I think so.
Yeah.
Because the first post credits is he gets lost in the quantum realm.
Yes.
And then you're right. The post credits was the Goofy ant playing the drums.
And it wasn't even that. It wasn't just cut to that. It was pan from the bodies turning to dust and the sadness. I watched this last night and I was like, I need to get as emotionally invested in this at the point it was made, like in this story, not at the future. How do I get as invested as I can? So I like teared up when I was thinking about like, oh my God, Cassie has to grow up without her dad. They're all gone. They all just disappeared from Earth. How sad is it? So heartbreaking. I'm feeling a little bit of sadness welling up. And then just an ant playing the drums. Cut to ant playing the drums. And it's great.
I remember really quick, just apropos of that specific point, which is why I'm the only reason why I'm interrupting, is the when they disappeared at the end of Ant-Man, the audience audibly gasped and murmured. Like I was like, wow, people care that Ant-Man and everybody disappeared? Like, they were upset. Like, people were invested.
Yeah, this was the movie that came out after Infinity War. This was the one. This was the in-betweener between Infinity War and Endgame, or the very first one, where it was like, oh, what are they going to do? Like, does this take place before? We don't really care if it takes place before, but it was such a good movie. And then that end tag really got you ready for what was coming a year later. And yeah, no, I remember the feeling in that theater was crazy. I missed that feeling. I really hope we get that feeling again.
Me
It comes out
too.
on Thursday. I'm buying my tickets. I'm crossing my fingers. I want some.
How have you not buy? My theater's sold out. I had to go buy them like 3
I
weeks ago.
live in Alabama.
I live in Colorado.
Yes, I won. Still, like, you made my point for me. Alabama.
Colorado. Oh,
Okay.
no. I live in a beautiful state with lots of tourism.
Are we going to make fun of me now?
No, we're going to bully you later. Also, we have, like, dozens and dozens of theaters in my area for whatever reason. I have one 2 minutes from my house, 10 minutes, 30 minutes. You could throw a rock. You'll either hit a church, a Chick-fil-A, or a movie theater. That's Alabama in a nutshell. But, yeah, so Ant-Man and the Wasp. When I was watching this movie, the thing that stuck out to me the most, cut Ghost out of the film entirely, and it works so much better. That actress is wasted. Her talent is wasted in this. Everything about her storyline is awful because it's literally fixed by Lawrence Fishburne's character going, Hank, do you think you could help this girl who's suffering because of your actions? He's like, I'll absolutely help you because I'm learning to be a better man throughout.
That's your Michael Douglas?
I don't care, man. Leave me alone. That's his best. That's as good as I could do on short notice.
No, it's funny because I actually agree and disagree. I liked Ghost, and we did need the antagonist. But the big issue was, like, I do think we could have pulled her out and just made Goliath more of an actual villain as opposed to, like...
He's there.
Yeah, he's just there, and he kind of antagonized this whole thing. But you're right. If he just... but it always boils down to the same thing. If they just talked...
Yeah.
If they just stopped and talked for 5 minutes, the movie's done. Like,
that's the worst kind of movie. Is like when you forget when you realize like, oh, if people just talk to each other like people, we wouldn't have any conflict.
Yeah. And I know what they're going for, right? It's this big, there's so many moving parts. Villain Group 1, Villain Group 2, the FBI, the Ant-Man and the Wasp team, Scott, the ex-cons. What are they all doing? I know what they're going for. And a lot of it works really well. The FBI sequence works well, minus the FBI agent who works for Walter Goggins. They do nothing to set that up other than one eye wink scene in the beginning, and none of it worked. He's not like had it been like a cameo actor like Brad Pitt playing the role or somebody huge, Leonardo DiCaprio, could have worked, but specifically because it's a no-name actor, it's a very tongue-in-cheek. It makes it seem like there's a bigger reveal there, and it's not. But other than that, it works really, really well. I think we really suffer in the sense that, like, Ghost just won't stop. She won't calm down, and calming down would give her the answers because they're not the villains. I think very quickly into the midpoint of the movie, you need to have them team up and have it very clear that Ghost psychosis won't allow her to create a narrative purpose and why she's doing this because everyone is down to save you.
Yeah.
Like, you're sympathetic.
And once they talk to her and she hears it, she's like, oh.
Yeah, it's really frustrating. Ghost was the most disappointing Marvel villain, and I'm hoping.
I love the design though. I think that's what bugs me the most about it. The design's amazing. The power set works. Like
it visually is really cool because I was complaining about it while I was watching it, and then there was this thing where you see her face jet forward where she's yelling, and then she walks into that jet forward, and then you actually see it like Ghosts in front of her. Looked awesome. Looked incredible. But you're left with a sour taste of like one under Lulay's character, and I hear she was recently cut from Thunderbolts.
I heard that too. Is that real? Like
I don't know. I've heard it enough times where I think it's real. So if it's not real, sorry.
But
if
what's
it is
the
real,
rumored Thunderbolts cast at this point?
They released an image. It was a concept image.
It's Red Guardian. It's
Yelena
Belova, Taskmaster.
Because I think the issue with Thunderbolts is it's going to be all the people that they just kept alive in the last,
U.S.
10
Agent.
U.S. Agent, Thunderbolt Ross, Harrison Ford.
Taskmaster. Yeah, so it's everyone they just kept alive in the last 10 years.
Exactly.
They realized, oh, shit, if we have a villain team, we need to keep them alive.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would have been more interesting to like really create a more interesting narrative around her character because there's a way to make it work. You have all the same actors, all the same moving parts. I think there's a way to make the story work. Obviously, Hank Pym did something that caused her life to be traumatized, but you got to plant seeds of that sooner. You have to like interweave into the plot. It really was, well, I need to sit down and give you the exposition. And it really doesn't work because of that. And also she's this tortured figure, right? Mm-hmm. But she's also this drop-dead gorgeous British supermodel. And that doesn't like she's like, I've spent my whole life phasing and I'm miserable. And it's like, well, you look like you did your makeup really well this morning, and in general, you're stunning. And you keep up with like you work out a lot, like
right?
What's the deal here?
Imagine how that works. Like, okay, I put the makeup on. It's all over my face.
The lipstick is everywhere.
She'd look nuts. It'd be cool, but
the British angle too. I have an issue with that because it's like feels really weird. It's specifically in this movie that feels kind of more American than most movies do in this MCU thing. Really weird to just have like a sudden British person just there for whatever reason. But I'll move on from that. But that was like probably my biggest point of contention for the whole thing that I thought of like this movie works out. Walter Goggins is hilarious.
Yeah.
He's so funny.
For me, the biggest problem with Ant-Man and Wasp, as much as I loved it, the movie didn't need to exist at all to continue the narrative, because this was still during the period where they were creating movies between all the movies, so everything had to like go together.
Yeah.
But the whole point of this movie was just to discover the quantum realm.
Yes.
And then it mess up Endgame. So it was they needed to make a whole movie around the idea that Scott gets lost in the quantum realm and that we can get Wasp out.
Right.
And that feels that way, that like that's what happened with Ghost, because they were like, okay, so we're gonna get Wasp out, and then we're gonna send him in to test it, and that's gonna set up Endgame. And then someone's like, yeah, what's the movie?
Is there a version of this movie where there is no ghost plot, and the plot is like the contention of Scott and his selfish but selfless decisions that affected his like chosen family, and the delving into the quantum realm to recover Wasp? Like, we need to get over our problems with each other in order to focus on recovering Janet. But that is contentious and troublesome, and it causes these rifts, and interpersonal drama that like they're just afraid of it so much. They're like, and throw Ghost in there.
That's exactly what I was gonna say.
Powers and stuff.
I feel like that was the rough draft of the script. As someone's like, but it's a superhero movie. We need a villain.
Yeah,
so
we need an action figure.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I feel very differently about it. Having actually rewatched the movies recently, Benny, and not the 10. But
I love the scenes in this movie with America. The growing on the coastline, that was incredible. The shrinking of the constantly up and down buildings was funny.
Yeah.
I do love this movie.
Visuals are stunning in this movie. I think that Ant-Man for me has always been separated from the grander. Like, if you watch a Captain America movie, you're watching another piece of an Avengers movie. Like, it all flows together really, really well. His story, and it helps that the directors are the same, right? It's the Russo brothers all the way through. But yeah, even when you're watching an Iron Man movie, still kind of feels that way. Definitely has its own tone a little bit by Iron Man 3, but still feels like part of this tapestry. Ant-Man exists.
There was
you
no
feel
Iron Man
like
3.
Ant-Man
They
is
had 1 and 2, and that was it.
right. Well,
Iron
you
Man
feel
3
like
is
he's
cool.
part of the greater universe, but also that I loved it, and I didn't feel like it was a filler. I also didn't feel like it was shoehorned, like it had to be created that way. I think that they came up with the quantum stuff after the fact. From what I can, like, I really feel like this was already their plan. This is already how they're doing it, and then the Russo brothers were coming up with, because the writers, I don't know if you know, I think the writers for Ant-Man 2 and 1 are the writers for Avengers Endgame and Infinity War, or maybe Endgame for sure. Christopher something and something McFeely.
Oh yeah,
Can't
Christopher McFeely and somebody else.
something. Yeah, they're the writing partner. They wrote both of these movies, so it makes sense that it's
that's
like
funny. I didn't know that.
yeah. So maybe they thought of it early on, and that's how they weaved it in. But I don't think it was like a greater Kevin Feige being like shoehorn it in.
I was actually wondering that when I going through this, one thing that came up because I realized, like, so Ant-Man led into Civil War, which then leads into Ant-Man 2, which leads into Endgame, and now the quantum realm is being used again for Kang.
Yeah.
I don't think they had Kang planned that far back.
No,
but
no,
not at all.
Wasp says there's somebody looking for her down there. And
Yes.
you're implied that it's the things down there, but
It could be anything. Like,
well,
yeah.
It answers probably one of the biggest plot holes in the whole movie, which is, hey, Michelle Pfeiffer, where did you get you got a dope Santa hoodie in the middle of a void?
Right.
Your makeup is on, your hair looks amazing. Did you bring a hairbrush with you when you were shrinking between molecules to get into a nuke? Because literally, she looks stunning in it. And it's like, you've been living in what we understand to be a desolate wasteland, so we're actually going to get into that plot. In my brain, that's why they made this whole movie, to address Michelle Pfeiffer's hair and the way she looks at the end of it. Finally, we're getting
that's
the
what
truth.
I was wondering. I was just wondering because like Quantumania is going to lead into Kang. So literally, Ant-Man, as much as you don't want to call it the filler, has been the in-between piece of every big event in the MCU.
true.
The bridge.
Yeah.
The bridge of the MCU in many ways.
Yeah.
Let's not call it filler. Let's call it what it is. It links it together beautifully.
Which we need more of. We do. Having a whole phase where they didn't link together and didn't feel like one big TV show. I want it back. I want it back.
I really do. I really
Yeah.
do. And that's, I know other people are going to disagree about that, but I'm trying to think of other things that stood out in this movie. The cast, the secondary cast, the ex-cons, they shine in this movie. They're so funny. They're so engaging.
Yeah.
They're so entertaining. I really love the whole thing at the end. Or the Baba Yaga bit was so like when I rewatched it, I out of pocket laughed out loud. I was like, okay, you can't write Ghost out of this movie because I really love the Baba Yaga joke.
Yeah.
Where they're all like Walter Goggins interrogating them, and then all of a sudden she just appears. Ah! Baba Yaga! And the music plays. It's like, who was that? And it's just terrifying, and it's
Yeah.
really, really funny. Cast is great. It's great. The visuals are awesome. San Francisco is a wonderful tapestry to tell stories. The building growing in the middle of Fisherman's Wharf, which, like, if you've ever gone to San Francisco, you've absolutely been to Fisherman's Wharf. It is the most go-to thing there, or the Turney Roads or whatever.
Yeah.
But they, like, I feel like they haven't done that since, like, I don't know, maybe Avengers where they're in New York. They definitely don't show New York landmarks on Spider-Man movies in the MCU so far.
For some freaking
so,
reason.
like,
yeah.
for some unknown reason. But they really showed the landmarks of the city. Really cool. Love that. Something I haven't talked about yet, Jimmy Woo.
Yeah.
Love Randall Park. Randall Park was a YouTube actor when I was growing up. He was in Wong Fu Productions videos. So seeing him in the MCU, also how different is he from here to WandaVision, where he see him later?
Yeah.
Where this one, he's got to be this kind of idiot antagonist.
Right.
And then they keep all of his character basically intact, but he's a hero now. And he's really,
I
really
want that
great.
movie that everyone wants, the one where it's just Jimmy Woo going around the Marvel Universe.
Yeah.
That TV show writes itself.
It does.
Just freaking.
Have you guys heard the
X-Files.
Jimmy Woo Asian Jim story?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
There's so much because Randall Park has a multiverse of act. He's done so many roles. He's done like Kim Jong-un is a role that he's done. So he's done everything under the sun. So it's really, really awesome to see him in the role, and he stands out. He's very, very funny. He's very charismatic, despite like one of my favorite pieces of dialogue where he's like, "Well, sweetie, adult stuff is difficult. So your dad went to Germany and he did something bad where he violated the Sokovia Accord statute, whatever." And he like goes and thinks,
Yeah.
And he goes, "Hey, you're really great with kids." He goes, "I'm a youth pastor on the weekends." So an incredible line read, just everything across the board. This movie was really fun.
Yeah.
It sometimes when we watch stuff for this channel, feels like work. This did not feel like work. Even honestly,
No, it was
nothing
such
I
a
watched
quick
yesterday felt like
watch,
work.
Hassan.
Nothing I watched yesterday felt like work. It was genuinely very, very entertaining. Somebody we do this show live on twitch.tv/Comicstorian, and somebody in the chat actually said he hated the Ant-Man and the Wasp suit because of how muted the Wasp's colors were. Well, after I was done with this movie, I rewatched the Quantumanian trailer. Looks like they mute. I want to say it almost makes sense. They mute the colors because it's more of a stealth situation, right?
Yeah.
Wasp isn't a superhero in public right now. She's building towards a goal. They're trying to get to the quantum realm. In this new movie, bright yellow suit is here. Bright colors. Everyone's suit got like dialed up saturation wise.
Yeah.
So
well,
we're
they have
getting
to compare with the Spy Kids 3D stuff.
Yeah, they do. They do, but also they're public heroes now. Like Ant-Man and the Wasp are going on a red carpet. So
I know we've talked about Ant-Man and Wasp, but we're not done. No, according to Marvel, Endgame is the next important Ant-Man piece. So Endgame
I mean, it is because
it
he's, like,
is.
he's
But
a
you told
major-
me I was watching the Ant-Man movies. I would have
Right.
watched all of them if you
Well,
told
right,
me.
but Ant-Man movies apparently imply Civil War and Endgame, not Infinity War. You don't have to watch that because he's in the quantum realm.
It's funny to me. It feels like maybe Ant-Man might be Kevin Feige's secret favorite character. Where he's like,
he's
"Can
the
Ant-Man be the
crux
linchpin
of
to this?"
Endgame.
Yeah, it'd be like if I were in charge of Marvel, where I'm like, hey, can Spider-Man secretly be in charge of everything? Can he figure this out? Can he be the guy who does this? Like, it just like every time he's like, you know who can fix this? Ant-Man. Like, you know who's gonna introduce Kang? You know who's gonna introduce the quantum realm? You know who's gonna introduce time travel? Like, Ant-Man. Got it.
The weird part about this whole Ant-Man being the crux of everything is that his actual power set is just to shrink. But they've created the quantum realm as like it's another universe, it's a time travel device, it's a it does everything.
It's genius. And here's
It's
the
genius.
thing. Once you kill off Hank Pym, you get rid of that MacGuffin.
That's true.
Yeah.
You get rid of that. And Michael Douglas said something along the lines of, he said, if I do a fourth one, I want them to kill me or something like that. So
Yeah, and it's
whether
like-
that confirms that he won't die or not, he might have just said it to say it. But
True.
yeah, if you kill Michael Douglas, realistically, you can come up with another plot purpose if you need it later, but you don't have Pym particles. Therefore, you lock away time travel, you lock away shrinking and growing. It's funny because you think about in Endgame and Infinity War, could all of the Avengers have just grown if they really needed to? Could they have like Dragon Ball Z style?
I'm a little disappointed they didn't do that. Like somebody didn't go, wait a minute. Shoo.
Well, I mean, the problem is though. I mean, it's the same argument of why doesn't everyone have an Iron Man suit? Like,
Well, I mean, they basically did.
Iron Man 3 is like Iron Man 3. Hey, look, 800 suits. I've given none of them to the Avengers.
I believe there was concept art design for Civil War that was Team Iron Man with Iron Man suits.
Yeah.
Like there was a specific design for each person, so they did concept art. They did talk about it at Marvel at some point. But yeah, no, that's an easy argument. But I would say, step forward in Endgame. Everyone's wearing an Ant-Man suit and has an Ant-Man helmet and is using a Pym particle.
Yeah.
So-
Can I literally make the Avengers into Ant-Man?
Yep.
Like, all right, Kev, we get it. You like
I think-
Ant-Man.
Tony has this great line in it where he's like, Stark Tech, Pym Shear, or Pym Tan, or something like that, when he's talking about the design of the suit, where it like is the perfect marriage of Stark and Pym, and I think that's really cool.
Nice.
In Endgame, it made me want to watch Infinity War and Endgame really, really badly. Like maybe not Civil War that much. That movie, I used to love it a lot. I don't have as much love for it anymore. But Infinity War and Endgame, I've been itching for a rewatch, and this just like really. And I might watch it before I go see this in theaters.
Yeah,
I mean, Ant-Man had one of the best jokes too in Endgame, where he comes back as a baby. And Hulk's trying to convince everyone, like, he'll grow. It's fine. We'll leave him like this. And then he fixes it. And he comes back and he's just like, someone peed my pants.
I don't know if it was old me or baby me. And then Tony Stark pulls up in his fancy future Audi and he's like, so let me guess, turn him into a baby? He goes, yeah. You push time through Lang instead of pushing Lang through time, which is like so crazy. And you should have never introduced that accidentally we could DH Captain America.
Right?
Accidentally we could bring back
that.
Accidentally we could literally we could prolong human life by centuries.
Only if we have Pym particles, which
if we have Pym particles, which Hank Pym is now alive and well. And if we have one, we can go back in time and steal it from him.
Yeah,
when he was
that's true.
alive and well.
Oh yeah, that's right.
We've opened just Pandora's box with this franchise, but
true.
It constantly works.
Yeah.
These films, I think it's because it's so funny, because it takes itself not that seriously, that we're able to introduce things that, like, if in a very serious, hyper-aggressive Marvel movie, we maybe wouldn't. We'd be like, well, why aren't you just doing that thing? You should have thought this through. But it's like, everyone's kind of an idiot in this movie. Like, everyone has a pinch of just, like, the stupidest person ever in the middle out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I mean, like, the Hot Wheels car box is the dumbest, greatest bit ever. Where, like, they've just stolen all these cars and you can just push a lever in the middle. They got rid of the infotainment system to add, like, a cartoon lever. I love it.
Yeah.
So overall, are these worth the rewatch? As somebody who has watched them recently and then watched it here with that recap, I've always thought Ant-Man and Ant-Man and the Wasp were some of my favorite ones. Ant-Man and the Wasp has more problems. It definitely didn't stand out as much to me. Like, even though I watched both of those within the last couple of years, it was I didn't remember the plot until Ghost showed up in the recap. I was like, oh, and like it all dawned on me, like, oh yeah, that was the movie. Because like I'm like, okay, Quantum Rumble Janet. That's the only thing that happened. It wasn't, obviously. Yeah. What do you guys think about these two? Because these also get some of the most flack if we excuse Dark World and Iron Man 3.
Yeah.
Sal,
I like it.
You go first. Yeah.
No, yeah. These are some of my favorites. In terms of solo, not like Yeah, I just think they're fun. The Ghost stuff is exhausting.
I'm sad that apparently they put like rumor has it, they pull it out Ghost, and then rumor says Sentry, but they've said Sentry for like years now.
Yeah. Well, as long as they cast Henry Cavill as a Sentry, I'm fine with that.
Well,
But I was just like, Sentry has been discussed for the longest time. I don't think they're putting Sentry into the Thunderbolts unless literally they backdoored in Henry Cavill. They were like, hey, you need some work?
Yeah. And he's like, let me call back Netflix. One second. No, we're keeping Luke Hemsworth. I need work, Marvel. Yes, this would be great. So my thoughts, I love it. I prefer Ant-Man 2 to 1 because I think it gives more screen time to the rest of the cast. And I love Paul Rudd, don't get me wrong, but I like Evangeline Lilly a lot. I like Michael Douglas a lot. Paul Rudd's scene where he is Michelle Pfeiffer, where he is, oh my God, I'm forgetting her name. What's her name?
Janet. He turns into Janet.
When he turns into Janet, it's so good. And like where he grabs Hank's face and he goes, hey, sweetie. It's so well done, and Paul Rudd's incredible. I'd much prefer that movie. Not much. They're both fantastic. A lot of people hate on it the same reason they hate Thor Ragnarok. It's the people who are like, this is too jokey, haha, funny.
Right.
I don't like that. It's like, it is, though. This is the best movie for that. And yeah, they have emotional stakes. And I think if you want a serious movie, I think we're going to get a version of a serious Ant-Man, this movie, on Thursday. So buy your tickets. Otherwise, I think that this is a fantastic film with one of the best casts by far. Because in other movies, casts are so ancillary. They're not well developed in the sense of like we know everything about their backstory, but they're really funny and really entertaining, and they serve their purpose really well. So for those reasons, I love these movies. I will go back and watch them 1,000 times more in the next decade. So,
all right. Well, let's close out Antwatch. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to give us comments down below with the next thing we should watch. With the next big movie being Guardians.
Yeah.
We should do Guardians watch in 2 months.
No.
Yeah, Guardians is incredible. Anyway, you guys have a great day. Don't forget to check out our sponsor, and we'll see you next time right here at Absolutely Marvel in DC.